You'll get the most from any Systems to Win video when you launch it from its home page. At the same time that we updated this training video, we also changed the file name for the training matrix to start with a 1 so that it's right up there near the top of the list as you go to scroll through the list of your templates. Why? Because we find that our customers who use their training matrix are dramatically more successful than those who don't. In fact, it's not uncommon for people who don't use their training matrix to end up having only 1 or 2 users using 1 or 2 tools, and everyone else forgets that you even own them. In fact, we found that the use of the training matrix is the single biggest determinant of the success with your Systems to Win tools. Like every Systems to Win template, if you click this link near the top of the page on the help sheet, or on either the sample or template sheet, you can also click this link, which will also take you to the same online training page, where you can learn to use each of your templates, in this case, your training matrix. And if we scroll down, we will find this section that introduces several ways that you can use this popular tool. Now, if you use your usual Systems to Win menu and click the usual button to open a blank sheet, then that opens up a blank sheet that you might then right-click to rename for your team or department or project. And the title for what your team is being trained on can be anything. And you can have unlimited rows of training topics with unlimited subheadings and unlimited section headings for anything you want to train your people on. But the one subject that every user of Systems to Win templates will benefit from is how to use Systems to Win templates. So there's a special worksheet for that. Now, any user will benefit from scrolling through the various subjects and clicking these link icons that open the related training web pages. If you are a leader, then you should use this Systems to Win sheet in this template as a cross-training matrix. So here in these header cells for the competency ratings, you enter the names of your team members. And then when you select a cell in the grid, you can click this drop-down arrow that appears to bring up a drop-down list of choices to choose from. If we scroll up, if we choose this very top choice, which is a dot, then the background color of that cell turns gray, which makes it very obvious that Jack does not need to know anything about 5S. He's not responsible for that. But maybe Jill is, so we can use the drop-down list to choose a value that rates her competency. And whenever you see any drop-down list in any Systems to Win template, you already know that you can always go to the DV sheet to find out what does a rating scale of 3 mean. And of course, you can easily overwrite these rating scales with your own rating scales. And then back on the Systems to Win tab, if no one on your team is responsible for observing or analyzing processes, you can select and right-click those rows and hide them. It's almost always a better idea to hide unused rows rather than deleting them. So let's go back to that blank sheet that we had created earlier and renamed My Team. Perhaps that sheet was for our own project team. And now maybe we want another sheet in the same workbook for the end users. You know, the people that our project team members will eventually train. what do those end users need to learn? And we can edit our own section headings. Maybe we want a section for skills that our end users need to demonstrate. And of course, you can always copy an existing header row to add unlimited similar header rows using right-click, Insert Copied Cells. Maybe we want a section for knowledge. And remember that rather than using insert rows, it's always smarter to copy similar blank rows using right-click, Insert Copied Cells, so that you're sure to copy all formulas and formatting from a similar row, using what you learned in the new user training that every user should complete. And you didn't skip, right? So let's say that there are no costs associated with your training. You can just hide those 3 columns associated with costs. Or conversely, notice that there are some hidden columns between columns E and I. You can optionally unhide them and use them, or perhaps even copy them for unlimited user-defined columns. By far the most popular column is the cat column. If we select that header, the pop-up help tells us to see the DV sheet for our user-defined codes for sorting and filtering. We came here earlier when we saw the codes for the rating scales. If we scroll over, we'll find where we can define our own user-defined category codes. And then back on one of our data entry sheets, when we select the drop-down arrow, there is our code in the drop-down list. You filter your training matrix the same way that you learned in the new user training for how to filter any Systems to Win template. Select the Systems to Win menu, More, Set or Reset Filter. And then when I use these drop-down arrows to select a filter, watch what happens to these subtotals here. I uncheck the checkbox for Select All, and then I'll select one or more of my category codes, in this case SO. Notice that the subtotals now show the subtotals for only those line items that had category SO. Once you understand this feature, you're going to use the daylights out of it. To reset the filter, we can again select More, Set or Reset Filter. To turn filter off, you select the Data tab and toggle Filter Off. To finish up, let's go back to the online training and remember that it said that there were several ways that you can use your skills and training matrix. Everything we've talked about so far is using it as a training and skills matrix. But if we scroll down, we see that we can also use this as a job candidate evaluation if you haven't yet hired people. And then rather than using this as a cross-training matrix for your existing employees, you're evaluating who might be the best candidate for your open job position. And the final popular use for this template is as a performance evaluation form. So the primary difference between a cross-training matrix and a performance review is that rather than evaluating multiple people side by side, you are instead evaluating a single person over time. So our competency ratings are by date rather than by name.